Before we dive into the episode, quick reminder, the Chase Tracker app is now available exclusively for Chase Club members. It's the easiest way to track your 5 factors of health and stay consistent with what matters. Join us at chasingexcellence.email. All right, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Hello and how are you, Ben?
Really good, Patrick.
Good to be here. Yeah, I'm at my kitchen table today.
I know. I can see the. Well, it's awesome that the kitchen table. You have an awesome view of an amazing Christmas tree.
Yes, we've got a nice Christmas tree. We cut it down ourselves this year. It's great.
You're so from Maine.
So from Maine. They give you a saw and everything. Go pick your own tree.
That's awesome.
So I'm at the kitchen table today. Fair warning, my little man is not feeling great today, so he's upstairs watching a movie, which means it's 50-50 whether he comes down here and says hi. So we'll see how that goes.
We might have a guest appearance.
He's upstairs watching Charlotte's Web, so we'll see. Okay, we did this last year at the end of the year. We did a 5 factors in review, which was just an excuse for us to talk through each of the 5 factors and talk about the things we added, the things we took away, the things we evolved, we played with, we failed at, whatever. So that's what we're going to do again this year. As we wrap up 2025, I thought it'd be a fun way to kind of regroup and talk through some practical things that are working or not working across the 5 factors for us. Cool?
Yeah, great.
I want to start with, 2 things. I want to start with where I think we left the episode last year, which is talking about how even though you and I have been doing this in some form or fashion for 20 plus years, right? We've been training, we've been thinking about nutrition, we've been thinking about mindset, all these things. There are still always little things to be changing and tweaking and that doesn't work. Or what if I tried it this way? And sometimes that's shiny object syndrome. And sometimes it's just like, you know what, I actually learned something and I want to implement that into how I'm doing it and how I've always thought about doing it. So what I thought we could do is just start with that and talk a little bit about broadly if we feel like we made big changes this year, small changes, no changes, whatever. And then we're going to go through each of the 5 factors. And I went back through our episode from last year and I just have some bullet points as to like, this is what we did last year. This is what we talked about. We'll use that as a start. And then we'll talk about what we've been doing over the last 12 months.
Yeah, nice.
Right?
Yeah,
so
I would say that
big thing first is you and I certainly have been having this conversation for 9 or 10 years now. We've been talking about the 5 factors. We've been in our own way, working on them, trying to implement them in our own lives. Do you feel like this year was a drastic change in any direction? Were these like a whole bunch of 2-degree changes for you?
Yeah, I would say that from a macro sense, this was very much just a tweaking.
Yeah, me too.
1% here, 1% there. I would say the year before was, when we did this last year, was not that.
Yes.
The year before was a massive mover for me in a lot of different directions.
Yes. Yep.
And this year, I think, was much more about refinement than it was big tide shifts.
Right. Do you feel like most people need big tide shifts more than they need tweaks? I mean, people listening to this they're probably in the same boat as we are in terms of where the needs are, the 1%, the 2% changes, the slight tweaks. But just thinking about folks you work with at the gym, are most people in need of big holistic changes in your mind, or is it the small things that make the big difference?
It's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. My gut tells me that it depends on how, again, this is like our current stance on chasing what truly matters, right? If you have high levels of awareness, if you're very intentional and you're putting the actions into place across, right? With the balance across the 5, I think for most people, it'll be smaller tweaks.
Yeah.
I think that if any one of those things is out of whack, right? You don't have the awareness, you don't have the attention, it's not falling into action, or any one of these things they're not balanced, like you're over-indexing on something, which is where I was last year. So that's why last year was so different than this year. If you're over-indexing in something, then I think it would make sense to me that you would want a more whole shift change than just a subtle tweak.
Yeah.
But I think that probably the majority of our listeners who have been listening to us, for the last coming up on 10 years are probably pretty well-versed and pretty intentional about where they are in these categories. And I think that most of them will probably take some subtle changes. I think some maybe newer people, or maybe hopefully through this conversation, we kind of pop some things to the surface that people go, oh, right, that.
Yep.
And realize that was a thing I should be paying attention to. That's a thing that was a gap in the game that, or the otherwise, maybe through things that like we're still struggling with, we kind of like show things that like, hey, it's even with the going on 2 decades of trying to do this intentionally, you're never there, right? It is chasing. That's a big thing. It's not being excellent. It's chasing it. We're trying to get to that spot, knowing that the horizon continues to move, right? And I really like that Naval Ravikant thing, the idea of, that's one of the things from this year that I kind of pulled out, that most people are playing 2 games, right? They're playing status games or wealth games. And I just like to think of this thing, life, as this game. We're playing this game. And as you get to better define what you think are some of the, I'll use the word principles, not rules, right, of the game, because they're not rules, you get to better play the game. And once you have that higher level awareness of what some of these kind of arbitrary made up games are, you get to kind of like say like, ooh, maybe that part of this game is not for me, right? I think that we continue to learn, we continue to shape this pursuit in different ways every single year. This year was, while it was a turning of a dial, small percents here or there, so different than the year before, which was so different than the year before.
Yeah. Love that. Last question before we get into each of the 5 factors. I know we're doing this conversation, so we're thinking about the 5 factors in review. If we hadn't been doing this episode, do you do any kind of review, year-end review sort of thing where you look back and you think, well, okay, that worked, that didn't work. Why did I spend so much energy on that? Or no? Because I feel like sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I don't really have a good means and methods for it. It's partly why I kind of like this conversation, because it gives me a good excuse to look back across these 5 factors. Yeah. But I'm just wondering if you've got anything above and beyond this that you find useful that other people maybe can implement. Questions, practices, journals, whatever.
So the answer is no, which is also why I like that we're doing this.
Good.
I'm really, I would say one of my strengths is also one of my weaknesses, which is once something's done, like I'm like, it's gone, it's over, like next, what's up in front of me? Let's just move on. It could also be called like a terrible memory, right? Or a disinterest in the past. Yep. It's one of those things, I'm not nostalgic.
Yeah, I'm the same.
And I think that can be a real benefit in a lot of situations, but it can be a real weakness in others.
Yeah.
And I like this practice because it kind of highlights one of the weaknesses, which is what could we have learned, what we could look back on. I'm doing the same thing for my team right now to go over our yearly review.
Yeah.
And so it's weird because I'm very intentional and very pragmatic, and I'm very interested, and I really, really enjoy this process of being a leader, of saying, it's a big part is like where we were, where we are, and where we're going in terms of laying out vision. And I really enjoy the where we were and the challenge that we face this past year. I'm even bringing up kind of like, sounds like what we're going to do here. It's so interesting to see the growth we've had. And I think it's so easy to forget the challenges we were facing just 14, 16, 18, 20 months ago, because they're so different.
Yep.
We're in such a different world. So I'm actually bringing up our yearly review. Where were we not only in this past year, what were the things we were facing in 24?
Yeah.
Because it really paints a picture of, wow, like we are evolving, we are growing, we are doing a lot. You get in this kind of cadence of, I record down every day. Like, did I call my mom? Am I home by 6 o'clock? Did I do my mobility work? It's kind of like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden you look back over the last year or two and you're like, wow, like actually, this is all these little big aggregation of marginal gains, right? The accumulation of these really small things compound into biggers. So while I do for the business side, I don't for the personal. I really appreciate that we are doing this. I went back and checked out the 24 episode that we did,
nice.
And it was very different. Like, holy smokes. Like, I had forgotten where I was at that point. I wasn't even following CompTrain programming at that point.
I know. Yeah, that's where
it's like, wow, that's crazy, right? That's, I would not have recognized that was something that I wasn't doing, because in my mind, it's just like, yep, been doing this forever.
Yep.
Like, wow. Yeah.
All right, then. So without any further ado, since we're kind of getting into it anyways. Let's talk about each one of these 5 factors. And
Yeah.
let's start with train. I feel like this is where we spent the most time last year. It may or may not be the place we spend the most time this time around, but let's start with train. So here's a few things. You're kind of alluding to it, but a few bullet points from last year where we had this conversation. You started following structured comp train programming. You added Sunday run days and you increased some training variety. And then I think you said it was like the fittest you've been in a long time. You said, I think it was the fittest you've been since your back surgery in 2014, or maybe you just felt the best since then. So let's start there. I've got some things, but let's start with you. Give me, is this an area of lots of little tweaks or what?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's slight moderate tweaks, but there are definitely some differences. One of those things is kind of the comp train methodology at large, which is what if I'm following it, we're making those changes, is we've introduced a lot more what I'll call intentional intensity. Right. So it's instead of let's just go for time, see how many rounds you can do in 20 minutes, that kind of idea. It is, let's train at these defined kind of set points. Let's do some work to specifically improve your VO2 max. Let's do some work to specifically improve your lactic threshold. Let's do some work to specifically improve your anaerobic capacity. I can now understand where my strengths and weaknesses are in those categories, and structured our weeks, I say hour because it's anybody following comp train now, to make sure that we're hitting those appropriately. So that's been a really cool thing. Like if you had asked me 3 or 4 years ago, what's your lactic threshold pace on a rower, I would have shrugged my shoulders or maybe given a guess. Now I can tell you. Same thing with VO2 max, same thing with anaerobic, same thing with zone 2. It's like, that's a really kind of fun thing to have as in the toolbox. And what's crazy is, I was able to get people to be the fittest people in the world just by doing this kind of like not as structured, right? Just kind of like, let's just go, and instead of intentional intensity, let's just train really hard. That's awesome when you can work with 24-year-olds and it's their job and they can spend 7 hours proactively recovering and getting the perfect amount of sleep and nutrition and minimizing life stress outside of that. That works. I'm going to say it. That, like, go really, really, you do what you can with what you got every day. Can work. If it's a better method than this, I don't know. I'm very confident that this intentional intensity is a better method for a coming up on 50-year-old running 2 businesses, doing podcasts, with 4 kids,
right?
Like that.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were saying that, it's reminded me of conversations we've had in the past about minimum viable dose. And it's almost like there's the minimum viable dose, the important word in that phrase being viable, of course, not minimum, but minimum viable. And it's almost as though the version of the other side of that coin that you're talking about with the top athletes is like the maximum viable dose. And it's like, again, viable is still important, but is it the minimum viable dose or is it the maximum viable dose? And they were going for, what is the maximum viable dose that you can give me, Ben, such that I can still get back tomorrow, but as high in intensity as humanly possible? Whereas now it's, where is the line between, like, how much do I have to give today so that I know that I can come back tomorrow and give an equal effort, and then again and again and again?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Anything else as it relates to training?
Yeah, there's a few other things. One is that I continued the Sunday run day. So I was able to get up towards, in the Comp Train app, we have that kind of set up for if you're like a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. But when I started that, I was at the beginner. Honestly, like running a 4 miles at a clip for me when I started that, this sounds weird for somebody that's done a half dozen marathons and 2 Ironmans, done 24-hour ultra events. But I didn't do it for 12, 15 years. That was running 4 miles was challenging for me. And this, now I've worked to where I can comfortably go 5 or 6 is absolutely a nothing. And I've worked up to a couple plus 10-mile runs. So I feel like I've gotten my distance, baseline back up a lot. I would say that the biggest difference I've done this year, those are 2 small ones. Other one is I stopped going to a gym during the summer. I trained at home with Heather. Very, very different.
This is when you're on the Cape and not
exactly
in Natick.
We brought down a rack. We brought down a barbell, a couple barbells, some plates. We brought down a bench, a bike, and some dumbbells. A couple yoga mats, and we were able to do everything, basically.
Love it.
So that was really cool. And then the biggest thing changes is the amount of attention I put into mobility. I've realized through this more structured approach that we have at CompTrain, which we believe your fitness is the equal parts your strength, your conditioning, your mobility. I always thought that my strength was the biggest limiter for me. My mobility actually is. And this is not from lack of stretching, or warming up. I would do that very proactively, but after doing some of the assessments that we now have in place, realize that is a bigger area that I can work on. And I've worked on that this year a lot with a lot more intention. So I've got back to this kind of 30-minute mobility sessions before my training session every day. I have a really good protocol. I've introduced, it used to be all stretching.
Yep.
I've introduced a lot more, call it foam rolling, right?
Got it.
I actually don't use a foam roller. I use a slam ball or a kettlebell. I just feel like it's so much better for me. But that's been a real function changer for me. Everything, I had Achilles issues forever, and forever I tried to work on my Achilles. When I loosened up my hips, my Achilles stopped being a limiter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this it's not necessarily where you think it is. And that's been a really cool thing. I haven't been able to do
Kelly Starrett always say it's upstream or downstream of
right. So I haven't been able to do a lot of explosive plyometric-y stuff, which we've also introduced a lot more of because I've been so timid about this. And it's not because of my mobility is actually the thing. I don't want to get to those extreme ranges of motion that quickly. I didn't feel safe. But as I've gone through this, that's been a big area of intention. My goal for this year now, I have a few goals, but is to be able to double dumbbell overhead squat 50 pounds in each hand.
Nice. That's a good goal.
So that is our ultimate in the CompTrain space. That is our ultimate kind of test of stability, mobility, range of motion.
Again, double dumbbell 50-pound overhead squat.
A dumbbell in each hand, 50 pounds, overhead squat that weight.
Yeah, that's
so it's very different than overhead squatting a barbell. You can get away with a lot of faults with the barbell.
Yep.
You can't with dumbbells.
We are sponsored this time around by Momentous. Right now, Momentous is offering you, fine listener, up to 35% off your first order with the promo code EXCELLENCE. I've been taking creatine on a regular basis for about forever, and it has long since become a daily essential, not just for the gym, but for focus, recovery, and cognitive performance. Momentous's new creatine chews are, I do not say this lightly, a game changer. They are bite-sized lemon lime chews that make consistency nearly effortless. You just got to grab some, chew, and go. Each of their chews delivers exactly 1 gram of CreaPure creatine monohydrate, which is the gold standard, single-sourced from Germany and NSF certified for sport, independently tested for purity, and trusted by Olympic athletes, pro sports teams, and elite military operators. It's got no artificial sweeteners, no fillers, just science-backed performance in a portable format. Get some for yourself. LiveMomentous.com. Use the promo code EXCELLENCE for up to 35% off your first order. We are sponsored this time around by Crowd Health. It's a community of people funding each other's medical bills directly. No middlemen, no networks, no nonsense. This open enrollment, take your power back. Health insurance processes are confusing and leave you feeling taken advantage of. I don't think that's an accident. The system is betting you'll just stay stuck. But Crowd Health is doing things differently, and it's something I'm genuinely looking at for my own family. For under $100 a month, you get access to a team of health bill negotiators, low-cost prescription and lab testing tools, and a database of vetted doctors. When something major happens, you pay the first $500, and then the Crowd steps in to help fund the rest. This is a really interesting process, a really interesting model. Learn more, join crowdhealth.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE. Remember, Crowd Health is not insurance. It's not a bad thing. Join crowdhealth.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE. We're brought to you by Function Health, the only platform giving you data most people never get and the insights to actually do something about it. We chose Function because inside the platform, you get access to over 160 lab tests annually, from hormones to toxins to markers of heart health, inflammation, and stress. And for an additional fee, you can also access MRI and chest CT scans, all tracked in one secure place over time. It's a near 360-degree view to better see what's happening in your body. If you're thinking about meaningful gifting this year, this is it. This gift will help your loved ones, your friends, your family, the random person at the grocery store understand their health and make informed decisions all year. Tell me a gift that would be more impactful than this. Go ahead. I'll wait. Okay, I can't wait that long though. We use Function and you should too. Own your health for just $365 a year. That's $1 a day. Learn more and join by using the link functionhealth.com/excellence or use the gift code excellence25 for a $25 credit towards your Function membership. Is there any more structure worth talking about with that mobility? And I ask selfishly because one of the things that I've incorporated this year and I've been relatively successful is like a 50, or really it's like a 10 to 20 minute mobility session after the boys go to bed, before I go to bed. And that's been awesome for all the things that you're already saying. But oftentimes I feel like really what I'm doing is stretching, which is great. And I'm not knocking that at all. But I always feel like, okay, maybe I just don't quite understand the difference between stretching and mobility and the value of one versus the other, or the value of doing one and the other.
So here's anecdotally myself. When I would stretch, I would feel great right afterwards.
Yes.
I would have increased range of motion. The next day, I would be back to square one. So essentially like I was renting it. Like when you stretch, you are renting this new space instead of owning it. And what's kind of happening there is if you go to stretch a joint, right? Like you're going to, with relatively straight legs, try and reach down and touch your toes, right? You're going to try to kick your heel up to your butt, grab your shoelaces and stretch your quad. Like when you do that, it's not just one muscle that's being stretched. You're stretching across a number of different muscles. Your body's really smart. Whatever muscles are already fairly flexible are going to stretch to allow you to get to that end. They're the ones that are already flexible. Any ones that have any sort of, I'll use the word tightness, any sort of like limitation are not going to. They're going to stay protected. They're going to stay kind of gunked up. So what's happening there is the things that you don't need to stretch are stretching. The things you do need to stretch are not. Think about taking two elastic bands and tying them together. One super thick, super, super thick. The other kind of thin and really loose and springy. Grab the ends of each of them that are tied together and pull them apart. The thick one doesn't move at all. It stays tight. The loose one stretches all the way. That's essentially what's happening. So what we need to do is not just stretch. I'm not poo-pooing stretching. Continue to stretch. Passive, active, all of it. What we also need to do, though, is make sure we're targeting some of those other areas. So I think it helps a lot to target those with some self-myofascial, some like foam rolling, if you want to call it that, before you stretch.
Got it.
So one of the biggest things, having read a book called Ballistic this year, is understanding the importance of your psoas. So there's a whole chapter dedicated to the psoas, and I printed it up and had my whole team read it. And I think if everyone had spent a little more time on their psoas, this is what happened to me. Everything else gets better. Psoas being the hip flexor, the only muscle that connects your lower body to your upper body. It's kind of like if that's the case, like that's kind of important.
Yeah, when you put it like that.
It's also the one that goes from, it's the only one that goes from anterior, front of your body, to posterior. So it goes across from your quads over your hip and attaches to your lower back. So people that have these low back issues, working on psoas can kind of be like this magic thing.
Yeah.
As I didn't want to reach full extension in like explosive plyometrics, my psoas wasn't willing to extend fully. So it'd stay partially closed, which then my Achilles would then have to take the brunt of that. So it's kind of like this thing that, I don't want to say it's a silver bullet, but it is a important thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. I'll just add a few things because my year of training was also little tweaks from what we talked about last year. So last year, one of the big things I did was join my local affiliate, CrossFit Harpoon. I was doing that once a week. I bumped that up to sometimes twice a week, sometimes once a week, but I've been getting there pretty regularly all throughout the year, which has been fantastic. And if I can figure out how to get to 2 to 3 over there a week into the new year, I just like chef's kiss for me. So I've been doing that. That's been great. I love it so much that I actually started working there because I can't go to a CrossFit gym more than 3 times without being like, can I help? Can I do something? So I did that. So I'm working over there now as well. So shout out to Maddie. That's been really cool. I've been continuing to work out here at home. Last year I started rucking. I still continue to love rucking, especially when it's cold out for some reason. It's like much nicer, the idea of like getting on a heavy ruck and going outside and doing something than going out to the garage and doing, I don't know, deadlifts or thrusters or something.
I like that. I might start implementing that. I like that a lot.
So I actually did that last night. It was late.
Particularly
I hadn't
the
done
cold
anything.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. So
like
I'm doing that. I mentioned the evening mobility. The one other thing that I did is we were sponsored by Hydro briefly this year. Hydro is a digital rowing machine. And so I got one of those and I've loved it. I think the machine is great. So it's different than a Concept 2 row where it feels different. The stroke is different. And it's in a similar way that you can sort of take classes or do sessions with a trainer on the screen, not live, but you can kind of like do pre-recorded things. So I'll try to do that once a week. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of replaced my Sunday run day because I end up out on Sunday morning. I'll do a 30, 40, 50-minute row, sometimes intervals, sometimes just sort of like an all-out piece. But just as something new, like I've been rowing forever and I was like, okay, I'm decent at rowing. And then I got on this and I got a little bit of instruction from actual rowers. I was like, okay, I'm terrible at rowing, but now I've got somebody who I can literally like match stroke for stroke. And it's like, oh, okay, like I'm actually learning how to pace. I'm actually learning what to do when I start to get fatigued and how to, stroke rate and power and whatnot. And so that's been really fun, just kind of like a new, fun, novel thing from Hydro. So I thought that's been great. But otherwise, it's been a lot of the same. It's been great. I think I will admit the last month or so, we're recording this in December. When things get cold and dark here, it is harder for me to get out to the garage and train by myself. So again, it's another reason to lean into the gym and the affiliate, but also just being aware of like, okay, this is when I do, even though I've worked out by myself and oftentimes alone in my garage for years and years, this is the time of the year that I've got to really buck up and say, I've said it's Tuesday. I said I was going to train today. I know I don't want to, but I've got to get out there and do something. And so for me, I think I probably said this last year when we recorded this in December again, this is when it gets really hard to be sort of solo in your garage in the Northeast. But admitting that, being aware of that and just sort of like doing what I can with what I've got is really important to me. And so I'm literally in the middle of that. Like last night, it was 8:00. I was like, I was supposed to do something today. I didn't do it. I just went outside, I put the ruck on and went up for like a 30 or 40-minute walk on the treadmill. I was like, good, I got that. I got something done, success, and then I'll try again tomorrow.
Nice. Yeah, I would maybe just share that as well, saying that we're, in mid-December right now. I think that there's a season, a cyclicality to everything. And I tend to peak my fitness in the summer and September.
Yeah.
September is when I feel the fittest by far. And I think it's actually because I come back from like the Cape from the summer. I get back into this routine, and about 5-6 weeks, maybe it's the end of September, early October, that's when I feel really, really good. November, December are not that.
Yeah.
Like I just don't, like right now, I'm not nowhere near where I was a little bit ago. That's okay. Like I just want to like maybe give people permission.
Yeah.
That is okay. You're not supposed to just kind of like hang on the exact same all the time. Working with the pro athletes, there's 2 things that really popped up that made me realize. First is early in my career, didn't realize the necessity of deload after like off season. So you can come back. It was like, hey, we're really fit. Let's just keep riding this thing. Let's go. Learn the hard way. That does not work to the point where like one of my athletes, I think I've mentioned this before, but her hair started falling out. Like it's a real thing. The next is this idea that like you can hold on to it. Like every single athlete, every single season has to overcome something.
Yeah.
Every year it happens. Everyone gets sick for 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Sometimes it's a month. So it's not you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not anyone listening. Everybody goes through this where you have this like, and it's hard for everybody. If it's hard for you, think about somebody that makes their living doing this, where they're like, I was just going in such a good groove. And it's like, and then I got this, I got strep throat. I got COVID. I got whatever bronchitis. I got the flu. I got this. It's like everybody. every single person. So that's a normal thing that I think it's just helped to like, okay,
yep,
I don't have to be the victim or the pessimist. This is the thing. Yeah.
It makes me think of one of the things we said at the top of this episode, just the idea of like reviewing back and looking back 12 months or 18 months or even 6 months.
Yeah.
Part of the value of that is saying, is remembering and recognizing, oh, I thought that time I got bronchitis, I thought that was the worst thing. I was like, I beat myself up over it. I was so upset. I missed 2 weeks of trading.
I'm never going to be fit again.
Yeah,
like,
never.
Oh my God.
And it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like I got back. Like it was hard in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But just remembering, oh, it's been hard before. I've gotten through that before.
12 weeks later, you don't even remember you were sick.
Exactly.
You're fitter than you were beforehand.
Yep.
It's like, yeah.
And like the reason I thought about it is just like with the business, like, oh, we thought, that period in the end of 2024, we really thought like this was it. We were never going to get over this hump. And now we look back, it was like, oh, we got different problems, but we got through that problem. And so whatever problem comes next, it's just reminding ourselves that, oh yeah, I've been here before.
Same as ever.
Here before. And we don't need to tell a story that is different than what's actually happening. This is hard. I've been through hard things before and we'll get through it. And eventually, when we're talking about fitness in the Northeast, it's like, it's going to be springtime before we know it. And we'll be back outside and it'll be much easier. And so we just got to get there.
Yeah. What goes along with that, and I just want to share this part too, because it's kind of the opposite of this in a way, but there is a trait amongst many elite performers that if your mindset is the story you tell yourself, the story is, I can't remember who it was. It was a really high level golfer. Bob Rotella talks about it in his book, How Champions Think. And he talks about how when asked, this golfer, I won't say it's Jack Nicklaus, but it wasn't. They was asked about 3-putting, which is really bad in golf, right? And you have to like,
especially your pro.
Yeah. Most holes are par 4, right? If you're doing 3 putts, that's bad news. So they asked him about it. He said, no, actually, I've never 3-putted. And the reporter was like, no, you actually, I'm not sure if you know this. You were 3-putted. He goes, I think you must have me confused with somebody else. I've never 3-putted. That's how strong this story is. And he had. The punchline is he had several times. He truly believed he had never 3-putted in his career because he's like, that's not who I am. This is not what I do. I am invincible. Katrin never thought that she got hurt. She would never, she thought through her whole career, never thought she had an injury. She battled a different injury every single year. But in her mind, like, I'm invincible. I can't, I never have to do. So it's kind of it's this weird, I don't know what, I'm trying to like highlight and bring up to the surface of like, there is this trait amongst the elite that they have this storytelling mechanism that is so self-reinforcing that it can sort of like give them this confidence.
Yeah, it's like a bad memory self-preservation.
Yeah.
Like if I don't call it injury, if I don't remember that I was injured, that I'm not the kind of person who gets injured, and that means I can keep going hard because I'm not worried about being injured. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I'm the type of person that doesn't get injured.
Yep.
It's like, and she said it towards the end of her career. And I was like, she said it a lot. And I didn't, obviously I'm a coach. I'm not like, actually, Katrin, do you remember like when you did it to your back and then you had the ankle thing? And remember when we couldn't do muscle ups or anything because you had your shoulder thing for 3.5 months? It's like, and so I'm like, yeah, you're right. You never get hurt. Yeah. And then towards the end of her career, I was like, Katrin, remember when you used to say that? And she's like, oh yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
I always like to joke that happiness is a short memory and low expectations. So there's part of that in there.
It's the same thing of like, I never miss a golfer would saying like, I've never missed a cut. I don't miss cuts.
Yep.
Like I always make it's like, of course I'm going to win this. It'd be like saying like, I never lose. Yep. I never lose. Like that self of confidence of like, no, doesn't matter what the score is now. Like I don't lose.
Nope.
I'm going to win this thing. Like that's awesome. I just want to, it's a cool thing that I think we could all probably, I'm not saying do it, but like just learn something from it.
Recognize it. Yeah.
Recognize it. Yeah.
We are brought to you this week by BetterHelp. The holidays are a time of traditions. Some we inherit, some we create. Growing up, my family didn't have a ton of elaborate traditions, but the ones we did have mattered. And now, as I'm building my own family with its own routines, I'm thinking more about what I want to carry forward and what I want to create from scratch. One tradition I have been trying to build is actually taking time to take a breath during these here holidays, not just rushing from one thing to the next, from work to family to shopping to basketball, but pausing to reflect, reset, and close the year with some clarity instead of chaos. BetterHelp makes this process easier. You fill out a short questionnaire, they match you with a licensed therapist, and you can start having sessions from wherever you are when you are ready. If the match isn't right, you can switch therapists anytime, no questions asked. The end of this year, as we go into the new year, start a new tradition by taking care of you. Our listeners get 10% off at betterhelp.com/excellence. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/excellence. We're brought to you this time around by Surfshark, a VPN that helps you take control of your online privacy and security. If you're listening to this show, and you are because you hear my voice, we know you're going deep. You're reading the articles, watching the videos, listening to the interviews. You're putting yourself out there in search of learning and growth. But every time you're online, your data is exposed, whether you're on public Wi-Fi at the gym, traveling to a competition, or just browsing at home. Surfshark encrypts your internet activity and keeps your online presence private, so you can focus on what matters without worrying about who is tracking you. I've been using it on all my devices. Yes, you can use one subscription across all your millions of devices, and it's seamless whether I'm accessing content while traveling or just want peace of mind that my information stays mine. It works. Plus, Surfshark comes with a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no downside to trying it. Secure your privacy with Surfshark by going to surfshark.com/excellence or use the code excellence at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Cool. That was train. Let's jump into eat, because unsurprisingly, we're already like halfway through this and we've only gotten one. We got one.
That's the big one, though,
we'll
right?
We'll go a little long today. It's all good. Let's do eat. Give me a sense of if anything changed for you nutritionally. Actually, before we do, let me give us the quick recap of what we talked about last year. Because you increased protein to 200 grams a day. You did some food sensitivity testing. Mm-hmm. I think you eliminated back then red meat and eggs. So curious if that stuck. Yeah, you kind of decreased your alcohol. I don't ever get the sense that you drank a lot. So I think that was a minor thing. Those are the big things. So catch us up. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would say the biggest one is I did a form or fashion of intermittent fasting for years, like 7 years maybe. And time restricted eating, not restricted, time restricted, right? Where I would skip breakfast. This year I started eating breakfast. Mm-hmm. Which I'm not going to say whether I like it more or not yet.
Yeah.
I think from a performance perspective, I definitely do. But you're
getting the same amount of calories. It's just, you're just spreading them out.
No, I'm getting more calories.
More calories.
Yeah, definitely more calories. So from a performance perspective, I definitely feel like it's helpful, but I'm also not as lean as I was then. So I'm going to reserve the rights maybe until next spring, summer to say if I like this more or not.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest one, I would say. I like intermittent fasting. You're time restricted, but I also like the feeling. And one of the big reasons is, maybe the second part of this, maybe training, which is different as well, is I moved my training later in the day.
Okay.
I used to train at like 7:30 class, 6:30 class a lot of times. I now do mostly the time 9:30. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing work. I get the kids off to school. I'm just getting into maybe like the think thing a little bit, but I now do about 90 minutes of deep work. I found that that's actually really helpful, because once I get to the gym and I train, I don't own it anymore. Like anybody can come into my office, but if I get the kids off to school and I go and sit for 90, that's been really helpful for me. So it's forced me to train a little bit later, which also means that I'm eating before my training than after. So that's a difference.
Was there, just out of curiosity, was all those little changes, was one of those the lead domino, and then you have to say, okay, if I want the 90 minutes of uninterrupted time, that means I have to train later. That means I should eat before I train. Like, was that was it, I want to play with eating breakfast, I want to play with training later in the morning?
It was all like multifaceted, and all these things kind of like interplayed off of each other. So the first one is one of the changes I did last year, which is I don't want to train at 6:30 because I want more sleep. That was a big difference I did in 2024. So it's still that now. I get up at 6 o'clock now, and I want to get the kids off to school. So they're off at 7:15. then it was like, okay, I could either get to rush to the 7:30 class.
Yep.
Don't want to do that. I need my warm up and my mobility beforehand.
Right.
So I could do the 8:30 class. Yep. Right. But then once I'm there, then like my days kind of like, I don't own the time after that.
Yep.
So if I want to create that hour, 90 minutes of deep work, I put it before. So it's kind of like this multiple thing, which then went, okay, if I'm training that much later, I didn't mind training on the empty stomach when it was early, but I didn't like it as much. I have more time to digest my food before I train. Do I want to try that? So it was kind of like a bunch of, kind of like a switchboard, right?
Yep.
Not a light switch, but a fuse box of like, which is the right combination of these switches.
Yeah. And I really like what you're hinting at there, which is sort of the interdependence or the relationship between all of these factors with the other ones, right? It's rarely, and I think we can get trapped into thinking like, I just need to get to the gym more without thinking about, well, what does that, or how does that affect my nutrition? How does that affect my sleep, right? I want to wake up and work out first thing in the morning. Well, that's should affect when you get to bed, right? And all of these other things. It's why I think one of the reasons why the 5 factors is the 5 factors, and it's not, we just don't talk about training. We don't just talk about nutrition, because once you start moving one of those around the chessboard, you're a fool to not recognize, okay, that means everything has to move. That means everything has to be adjusted in some way, shape, or form, so that I'm not setting myself up for failure by just saying, I want to train at 8:30 now. And then I'm just going to let everything else stay exactly as they were, without the recognition that that changes your whole morning or that changes your whole day.
Yeah, it's one of the things where I think it's such a great call out. And I think it's so tempting to think of these as pillars.
Yep.
Right? It's, if you think of it truly like a Roman cathedral with these pillars.
Yep.
And each one of them, they stand alone by themselves in a siloed fashion. And what you do in one is the one. You're just like, I just want to make this one as strong as I possibly can. And then I'll work on the other one. When that's not the case, it's more like making a soup or a stew, right? If you put in too much salt, you can't just leave it. It's not going to work. Right? You have to like put in more of the other things. So you have to balance it out. And there's this interplay between all of these things at all times. They are not siloed.
Yep.
I think a maybe even better analogy would be, it's the departments of a business. Right?
Yep.
You don't just have marketing.
Yep.
You don't just have sales. You don't have finance and operations, which is what people like to think. It's like, you guys over there, go do your thing. You guys over there, go do your thing. We all know that the best operating organizations have huge interplay between them, or maybe even more elevated. It's a basketball team, right? 5 factors, 5 positions. Like the center has to work with the guards, who has to work with the forwards. It's not like, okay, you just rebound.
It's not 5 people on one team.
Defense.
Yeah, exactly.
And what one person does affects the others. So there's a huge interplay between those things.
Yep. Yeah, right on. I think for me, for nutrition, last year I started doing lazy macros. So shout out to EC, lazy macros. And I increased my meal timing, or the number of meals I had in a day from roughly 2 to roughly 4.
That's a little bit like what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been much, much more successful this year with my nutrition. I would say similar to training the last month or so, or maybe even since the boys kind of went back to school, it's been harder for me to do, for whatever reason, it's been harder for me to track, which is different than saying it's been harder for me to stay on point with my nutrition. It's just the tracking part has been harder. And so what I've done is just remove some of the barriers of tracking, which is, I now have 2 things that I try to do every single day. One is I try to get 30 grams of protein in before 9 a.m. because I found that the days where I just didn't eat enough, which is my Achilles heel, is just like, I just don't want to eat, is if I can get a good breakfast in before 9 a.m., sets myself up for the rest of the day. Generally speaking, I'm good from there because I've started on the right foot. And then the other thing is I try to have 4 proper meals, quote unquote, proper meals. And a proper meal for me is just like adequate amount of protein, fruits and vegetables alongside of it. So is the
protein you're having before 9 one of those meals?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just the first one is just so I can start my day without having to like get to noon and be like, I haven't eaten anything today, which is left to my own devices more often than not. I'll just like get to 11 or 12 and just be like, I probably should eat something now. And then it's the 4 meals. It's not, I've just turned down the dial on my necessity for me to actually be tracking my 800 grams or tracking my protein. I'm still generally close to that. I'm just checking off those 30 grams in the morning and then 4 meals throughout the day.
Nice.
Is to me right now a win.
Yeah, that's similar to where I am. That's kind of what, when I said no more eating until 11 or noon was the thing I was doing. I've added in that other meal or 2 is essentially what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
maybe another thing that I've done this year more so than others is if I've upped my creatine intake for sure. And I would say a vice is, I'm saying this out loud. When we went to Croatia, it resonated so well. One of the people there, the way she introduced herself was, I'm a professor. She's like a professor of like mindset for the military. Amazing. Cool. She goes, and I have 100 vices and 99 of them are caffeine. And this year I can sort of resonate with that. I've upped my caffeine intake to the point where I feel like it's something that I should probably, and I'm saying this out loud on purpose.
I'll check in with you next year.
Curtail. I'll put. Yeah.
What is your delivery method of choice? Because I know you don't drink coffee, right?
I either like to rub it into my gums or inject it between my toes.
Just caffeine pills.
I do like the Ascent pre-work. They don't even make it anymore, unfortunately. So but it's just really clean. It has nothing else in it. It's like electrolytes with caffeine.
Got it.
That's my kind of go-to. But I'll grab I'll grab an energy drink here or there.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Hey, I'm going to interrupt us. This is Patrick from the future interrupting Patrick and Ben from the past. Because as you can tell, we're 45 minutes into this conversation and Ben and I haven't gotten to nearly half of the 5 factors yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause us here. That's going to be the episode this week. And next week, we're going to continue this conversation. Ben and I are going to talk about the other 3 factors: sleep, think, and connect. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Do make sure you jump back in next week when we continue this conversation. Thank you so very much for tuning into the show this week. 2 quick things before we go. The first, if you want even more from this episode, I do recommend you check out the full listener guide where we break down all the big ideas. We ask reflection questions. We give you steps to put these ideas into action. The link is in the show notes. And the second thing, while you're there, check out the Chase Club. It's our premium membership where we include bonus content, ad-free episodes, and the brand new Chase Tracker app. Check it all out at chasingexcellence.email.